Well, good evening and thanks for joining us here on News 20 on GTN. We have a wonderful show for you tonight. Joining me to my right, a gentleman you've probably seen on TV around town, Mike Ferguson, the host and producer of Missouri Viewpoints. Glad you could join us.
Thank you for having me back. I think what you do here is a fantastic service.
And you also?
I try.
Let's talk a little bit about what you do.
Sure.
Very successful. When you look back at our histories and how we've built things, they're very parallel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Missouri Viewpoints is a news and public affairs show. It does a lot, really, what you do here. You know, we do a lot of one-on-one interviews. Sometimes we'll get into the political world and just make sure that we have both sides of an issue represented. Sometimes we're dealing with health. Sometimes it's financial advice. Everything from, hey, what are some great tips to save money to, hey, here's how to protect yourself from ID theft. You know, as a matter of fact, earlier today as we recorded this, I had somebody on from the AARP, and they were talking about, man, the older we get, the more we are a target for ID thieves. So, you know, basically what I try to do with the program is provide information that we can use and something that can make our lives better or safer or more prosperous or every once in a while just more fun.
And this has snowballed into radio and all kinds of good things for yourself.
It has. It's pretty funny. When I started the show, because the program, and I don't even know if I told you this, Randy, the program started in 2007 as a YouTube show in a coffee shop in Grandview, Missouri. And it was a little 10-minute thing. I did it once a week just because I love telling stories. I love doing interviews. And as of right now, we reach about 85% of the state on broadcast television, cable television, and 30 radio stations as well. So it's taken on a life of its own that I would have never guessed. But what's really cool about that is that when I started this version of the show, I was told it will never work. You have to have something where people sit and yell at each other and argue. They said just one-on-one conversations that are intelligent and go deep into issues, Mike, that'll never work. Well, turns out it is.
You look at that success that you've had, and I think that's one of the things we focused on a lot the last time you were on, is that if you're committed to a cause, you really want to do this, you can make it work. There are avenues. You don't need a TV station. You don't need all that big stuff. A little small camera, a good sense of broadcasting, some good guests, some good topics, put it on YouTube, let it roll.
If you're passionate about it, it's going to come through. Matter of fact, on the way up here, I was on the phone with a gentleman who's a friend of mine who owns a semi-professional basketball team. And this is his passion. This is Brian's passion like you wouldn't believe. So he wanted to know, hey, I want to be able to live stream my games, but I don't have a bunch of equipment. Well, it turns out he doesn't need a lot of equipment, and he found a service that he can do this. So when his team goes on the road, he can broadcast it back to the folks in the state here, and it's turning into a business opportunity for him. And it really is all about that passion. You got to have common sense. You got to have some business sense about you. But yeah, that passion really is the engine that drives it.
What do you tell the youngsters out there, and maybe not even the youngsters, but you know, people our age that are maybe changing careers, see this as I don't want to say lucrative career, but see it as a career that is fun and different? What do you say to them?
Well, we are youngsters, of course, still, right? But no, what I would say is it's that old saying that says, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I find that I put in more hours per week now than I probably ever did at any of my corporate jobs or network affiliate jobs that I worked at, but it doesn't seem like it. You know, yeah, I could be tired at the end of the day because I've done a lot, but it's a really accomplished feeling that you have. And what I would say is, know what you want to do. Don't fall into it. Don't say, I want to be on TV and then just see what's out there. Know what you want to do, plan it, research it. Find people like you who have done it, are doing it, and are regarded as experts in the field, and learn from them. Get as much experience as you can. And we kind of mentioned this last time. It used to be that you had to compete for some internship, and you might be able to run the teleprompter or coil up the cables on the back of the camera. That's how I started. And now you have the ability to be your own broadcaster. Get experience. Anything you can do hands-on is the way to do it. There's a place for a formal education, whether it's Mizzou or Lindenwood or any of the colleges or universities, and there's a place for that. But the important thing is get out there and do it and have a plan. Know what it is. Know what it is you want to do.
One thing I tell the kids is probably actually two things. One is you have to listen to be a good interview. You could come out with 40, 50 questions, but if you do not listen to your guest and play off what they're saying, everything's gone. And two is that you have to be yourself. Mm-hmm. People can see through people who are just on TV because they want to be on TV. When people realize that you are genuine and you're doing it for the right reason, that's why you're successful.
Yeah, absolutely. The difference in listening, like you said, is it's the difference between you scripting a presentation versus you helping your guest tell their story. That's the difference. Do you want to script something to make you look good, or do you want to tell an interesting story of your guest? Well, people are tuning into programs like what we do and news and reality programs because they want to know those stories. They want to see the drama, the human drama. And the less you script that, the better. And you cannot do that without listening intently. And I remember when I was in college getting my degree, I had to go through an entire semester-long course on listening. And a lot of people don't understand. That's not just decoding the words that's coming out of your mouth. That's paying attention to the context. That's paying attention to the nonverbals. It's paying attention to body language. It's paying attention to all those things that are going to convey a message to your audience, because the most important people on your television or radio or documentary career, whatever it is your guest, who's going to be featured, and your audience. If you can remember it's not about you, you've got so much more chance to really do what you want to do and have the success that you want to have.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what's been going on in your world. I know a lot of exciting things, a lot of exciting topics. Let's touch on a few of them.
It's a pretty heavy topic that we've got coming up here in about another month or so. Normally on the program that we do is we come in for the day and we'll do 2 or 3 or even 4 programs, and we'll have people sit down for an interview, and then they'll be on the set with me for about 15 minutes, and then we'll shake their hand and thank you, and the next guest comes on. We've got a show coming up here in about another month dealing with human trafficking, specifically sex trafficking in our state. Missouri is in the top 5 states in the nation when it comes to the number of people trafficked for forced labor or for sex trafficking. And it's really hard to get your mind around that. And we did a program on human trafficking a month or 2 ago, something like that, and the response we got from it was just tremendous. It touched a lot of nerves. We had so many people contacting us and saying, I didn't know. I didn't know this was happening. I didn't know that if I went to that dirt cheap motel that could be a forced laborer that's cleaning my room, or if I went into a nail salon that could be somebody who's trafficked that's working there, or a massage parlor, or whatever these businesses are. They said we didn't know that, and we didn't know that there were so many in our state. We didn't know that 83% of the human trafficking victims are American citizens. So we got such a response out of that. We also heard from Congresswoman Ann Wagner's office. We heard from the FBI, and they said, listen, would you be willing to do another show really looking at sex trafficking? Absolutely. If we had that much impact on the overall picture, we're going to do it. And so we're in the midst of producing a program right now that really focuses on that. And the main guest that we have on the show is a woman who was a human trafficking victim for over 17 years. And she survived it, and she got out of it, and now she works to help other women in particular get out of that life.
The one thing I don't think a lot of people realize how much time and effort goes into a show that is produced outside of the studio. Right. We do a lot of shows inside the studio because we're a one-man band show here, yeah. And so we're forced to do that. But to go out and do something like this takes tens of hours, maybe, you can get in the hundreds of hours on one show.
Well, like with any program that you produce, there's planning. Sometimes you've got scripts involved. Sometimes you can ad-lib them. You've got graphics involved. You've got all these things involved that go into the technical side of it and the visual side of it. There's also research and studying, and what we're doing is we have a video that was provided to us that's going to set up the program. Very powerful, very powerful. Then we've got, I'm going to have a segment with Congresswoman Ann Wagner, because she is working with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle and federal law enforcement to change some of the federal laws regarding human trafficking. Very bipartisan. The goal is not a political debate whatsoever. It's how can we address the changes in this problem. And then I've got a field reporter who has gone out and interviewed the FBI. And they provided us with some footage of some sting operations from around the country that are pretty eye-opening. And then, of course, we will have Christine in the studio with me as well. And so we've got a lot of different perspectives on a problem. But the really cool part about all of this, and I don't use the word, I don't mean flippant about it, but what it is, what we know we're doing is that we know that there's a chance we're going to have an impact on somebody's life. There could be a viewer out there who is going to see what we do, and they're going to say, wait a minute, what about that person I saw? Something's wrong. I'm going to make a call. Who knows what kind of impact we can have? And if nothing else, we could reach out to a parent or to a family somewhere who says, oh my goodness, my son or my daughter could be at risk for this. Because it's not just one demographic that falls victim to this, it's really across the board.
One of the most intriguing aspects to doing what we do is the editing process. Mm-hmm. You could have all that information. You could have the best information out of any reporter or station in the country. If you don't know how to put it together to tell a story, yep, make it make sense, make it intriguing, and people want to watch, it's all wasted.
Absolutely. And the editing process is where we earn our audience's trust and our sources' trust, or it's where we throw it away. Because anybody who edits can make the story be whatever we want it to be. And so it's really crucial. And to the young, would-be future television, radio, documentary makers out there, you've got to uphold the most important standards you can have, which is your ethical standards and your honesty. And yeah, the editing process to me is the fun part, the producing and the editing, because that's where you get to decide what the puzzle looks like, and then you get to put the pieces together. And to me, that's a lot more fun than just doing the on-camera stuff, which is fine too, but the producing and the editing is the fun part.
I always tell the kids that you can teach anybody to push buttons. Yeah. Anybody can edit, but to truly edit is to learn how to tell a story.
Yes. Just
like a good storybook teller can stand in front of an audience. That's basically what you are doing through button pushing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is. You're 100% right about that. Pushing buttons and being able to do neat visual effects or sound effects, that's great. It really is. But you've got to remember that human element. It's the content that drives it. You can dress up a poorly told story all you want, and it's still a poorly told story. But if you take an interesting story, just complement what you're doing. Don't overwhelm your audience with bells and whistles. Compliment them, help tell that story, and then make sure that the human element, that story, the message that your guest is trying to get across is what resonates in the eyes and the ears and the mind and the heart and the soul of your audience.
What would you say one thing about yourself that has made you, turning it back on yourself, that has made you successful, you think? Why people like this show? Why people see you as intriguing?
I don't know that they see me as intriguing. Hopefully I have intriguing guests. That's really what I hope. I think it's the success of the program is because we really focus on digging out that information that people can use. I go into every program saying, what can we get from this guest that somebody can actually put to use in their life somehow? So if we're talking about political issues, instead of just trying to have a discussion over who scored the points in the game of political football, the pundits, the media, talking heads, all that, those can be interesting drama and conflict, but they just don't, for me at least, they don't really give me anything I can use. But when we're talking to a lawmaker or somebody who's in an executive position and we say, listen, if this law passes or if this budget is done this way, what does it mean to somebody listening in Blackjack or in St. Joseph or in Columbia or in Branson. And we'll get answers like, well, what it means is that your local school will have more money for this program. What it means is that there could be some health clinics that would close or could open. You know, what it means is that the local farmers in your county will be able to sell their products in a new market. You know, those kind of things that explain why it's important. And that's what I get the most feedback on is people said, I didn't know that, and man, that really helped. And I think that's what we want to do differently.
What audience are you shooting or targeting for, or do you have one? With shows like what we do, it's almost from 8 to 80.
Yeah.
You know, there is no target. We want things that might be perceptive to everybody.
Yeah, there's no demographic target as far as age or race or income or anything like that, but I think we're appealing to people who are already engaged in their communities somehow. Not necessarily political junkies, but the type of person that takes a few minutes to at least read the local paper and say, what's that city council up to right now? What did my state representative do? Is that governor doing what I want him to do or not do? People who are at least passively keeping track and engaged somehow. These are people that most likely do some volunteer work, whether it's in a charity or at their child's school or at their church or whatever the case is. Somebody who, you know, for instance, just really has no clue who any of their representatives are at the city, county, state, or federal level. They're probably not going to get a whole lot out of a program like mine. But those who really want to know what's going on around them and want to know how it impacts them, I think they're going to get something out of the program.
So as you're looking for ideas, the last time I was on your show, we talked about how people can get their press releases, get their stories out in front of people, how they can actually get on shows like mine and your shows. Your advice to them?
Be on social media. I find a lot of ideas on Twitter. For instance, I can group my news sources in you know, state politics, you know, health or sports or whatever the case is. And every day I'm going through Twitter and I'll go right to the source, right to their Twitter account. Obviously, I love to get calls and the emails too. My take on this is that a good idea can come from anywhere. And just because somebody at a nonprofit organization has an interest in getting on TV, that doesn't make it a bad idea. And as long as you deal with it honestly, I'm okay with it. So don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, we've got this event coming up. Hey, here's a topic nobody's talking about. Because a lot of times if I do that RCA dog reaction where I go, huh? If I give that reaction, the audience probably will too.
What about being persistent? A lot of people will give up after they've sent you one email. I'll tell you the truth, everybody out there, it's usually the 3, 4, 5, 6 emails and a couple phone calls that get to me, and I remember that.
Here's how a lot of media works. I'm going to give away one of our secrets here, Randy, and that is not getting a response should never be a red light. And if somebody finally says, no, stop, contact me, okay, fine. I did not hear back from one TV station in a particular part of the state for over a year. I kept on them. I kept calling, I kept emailing, not every day, but regularly to keep my name and what I wanted to do in front of them. And finally, after a year, all of a sudden I get a call from the general manager and they said, hey, my name is, I'm the general manager of this TV station. We've decided to add your show, like that. And it was about persistence. It was about just continuing to go on in a professional and respectful manner. But yeah, keep on. And there are going to be times where somebody may contact you, they may contact me, and it's just not the right fit at the time. And I try to be real careful to say, listen, I can't do anything with this right now, but please keep me on your list. I will be watching for your emails. I will be watching for your releases because it sounds like there's something that we're going to be able to work with down the road. I mean, maybe I've just got too many other things lined up. Maybe it's just not the right fit for the show. But relationship building is important. When you're sending out those emails, build those relationships and understand that being told no is not a matter of I don't like you and I don't want to work with you. It just means it may not fit right now. All
right. What do you see for the next 5 years out of Mike Ferguson?
Okay. Missouri Viewpoints.
And remember, we've only got 10 more minutes.
Okay. Missouri Viewpoints, I really want to see saturate both television and radio throughout the entire state. I want it to be the one of the go-to sources for information on what's happening in the state. Some things I want to do with the program include more reports, include more, reporters, more viewpoints, more perspectives, more voices, if you will. Another thing I'm working on right now is a Missouri Viewpoints channel, an actual entire TV channel based on programming that highlights what's happening in the state, promotes what's happening in the state. I actually bought a new computer. And it's kind of funny how this happened because they had an online TV app built right into it. And so I contacted them and said, hey, I've got this program. Would one of your news channels be interested in this? And it was kind of funny because I can watch how many views are happening on my shows. And all of a sudden, about 5 or 6 of them just shot straight up, which I had no idea what was going on. Then I got an email back from the vice president that said, would you like a Missouri Viewpoints channel? We could just air your shows. You've got so many. Well, I couldn't imagine anybody wanting to watch one show all day long. And I told her, I said, there are really good programs designed for the public that come from our state government, that come from the National Guard, that come from nonprofit organizations. And there's a lot of people out there who want to produce good quality programming and have no outlet. If I can assemble these, would you be interested in a channel that really focuses on what's happening in our state and promotes it? They said, yes, let's do it. So we're assembling the Missouri Viewpoints channel right now. That will be available and hopefully will be embedded on different websites. And I'm hoping newspapers like it. I hope radio stations like it. I hope city channels like it, so that they can tap right in and get a variety of information that's really interesting, that's really entertaining, and it really is something that is about what we do here in the state.
When you look at what you do in terms of a lot of the shows you do, a lot are serious, and there's some laid-back stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And what kind of strikes your chord? Is it a little bit of the mixture of being able to be yourself, have fun with the guest, and comes across to the viewer?
Yeah, I think so. I really do. When I first started the program, and believe it or not, we've now done over 100 programs, 100 weekly programs. I'm never going to catch up to what you do here, but we've done over 100 weekly programs on it. And yeah, I started off being very newsy, very, very stiff, which I knew better, which we've talked about before. But now it's okay to lean in, and it's okay to get caught up in the conversation. And what really gets me, what really I think connects with me personally, is when I know that that guest is saying something that the audience is going to respond to and going to be impacted by. The human trafficking show we did earlier, I had people telling me I was crying watching your show. You don't ever do that again. No, do that again because it's important, and evoking those emotions in a way that's deep, that's not just a cheap cry or a cheap scare or a cheap laugh, but something that really matters. Yeah, not every show has to be dire. Not every show has to be really heavy, but every show can be something that has a good, solid, important place in our lives.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
It's you're on the perfect track there. I think about back 20 years ago with the perspective of starting here and how we built, and it was a slow process. And people would say, well, we're not sure who you are. No, we don't want to do an interview. To now where, we're shooting 200, 250 shows a year, and we have, we can pick up a phone and get a guest with no problems because of the trust factor. They know that what we're going to do is trustworthy, and we're not trying to burn anybody. It's the facts, lay them out there, and the viewer gets an opportunity to listen and decide on what they think.
And because you won't do this, I'm going to break protocol and do it for you. You have no idea just how valuable a service that GTN and Randy and the city of Blackjack are providing when you do that. That is something I wish more communities would do. You all are doing it, and you're doing a great job, and I just hope it just continues to grow and be successful and just continue to be a positive asset to your community.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Now you're going to make me cry. As we start to wrap things up, Mike, what would you want everybody to know out there about what you've done, what you're doing right now, and what you continue to do?
Right now, what we're doing is I would love for people to connect with the show on Facebook, for instance. You can go to MissouriViewpoints.com and you can watch all of our archive programs. We put them out there for people to watch. On the Facebook show, really what I'm trying to do now is build in that audience interaction. Yes, we have the shows. I hope you watch them or listen to them. I hope you really enjoy them and you get something from them. But what I really now want to do is take it to the next level and say, you know what, go to our Facebook page, give your opinion. Give me suggestions on what you think we should cover. There are all kinds of issues out there that I don't know much about. And I am not the sole source of good ideas for TV. If anything, my strength is being able to say, I don't know that much. You tell me. So I think what I want to do next is really improve and increase that interaction and that involvement from the audience. And I want the folks that watch the show to to really kind of lead it sometimes. I love getting messages on Facebook saying, hey, nobody's talking about this, or that guest you had on is wrong, or that guest you had on was right, and really increase that discussion to not just the 28 minutes and 30 seconds that we do each Missouri Viewpoints, but so that discussion, that impact can just keep going on social media.
One more time, where can they find all your stuff at?
MissouriViewpoints.com, and there's a link to the Facebook, and there's a link to the Twitter right there, and there's also a list of everywhere the program is on the air around the state. So MissouriViewpoints.com.
Mike, always a pleasure.
It is.
Half hour goes really fast.
Too fast.
Appreciate your time. Once again, Mike Ferguson, the producer and host of Missouri Viewpoints. Thanks for watching tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night right here on News 20 on GTN. Have a great evening.
Marine Corps Sergeant Andy Robinson was paralyzed when his Humvee was blown up in Iraq. Paralyzed Veterans of America helped Andy get all the health care and benefits he's entitled to. To support paralyzed veterans, go to pva.org.
The ants go marching 2 by 2, hurrah, hurrah. The ants go marching 2 by 2, hurrah.
The spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun.
And the farmer's wife, she climbed up that house with the clover. Now, did you ever see such a thing in your life as 3 blind mice? 3 blind mice.
Marine Corps Sergeant Andy Robinson was paralyzed when his Humvee was blown up in Iraq. Paralyzed Veterans of America helped Andy get all the health care and benefits he's entitled to. To support paralyzed veterans, go to pva.org. Marine Corps Sergeant Andy Robinson was paralyzed when his Humvee was blown up in Iraq. Paralyzed Veterans of America helped Andy get all the health care and benefits he's entitled to. To support paralyzed veterans, go to pva.org.
The ants go marching 2 by 2, hurrah, hurrah. The ants go marching 2 by 2, hurrah.
The spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun.
And the farmer's wife, she climbed up that house with the clover. Now, did you ever see such a thing in your life as 3 blind mice?
Marine Corps Sergeant Andy Robinson was paralyzed when his Humvee was blown up in Iraq. Paralyzed Veterans of America helped Andy get all the health care and benefits he's entitled to. To support paralyzed veterans, go to pva.org.